Hello everyone, myself Suma and my colleague Swarna are going to be the speakers for this session on design thinking. And before we get into the topic, I would like to take a minute or two to speak a few words on AVEVA. So AVEVA is a leader in sustainable industrial platforms and software. AVEVA has 50 years of industrial domain expertise. It combines the world leading industrial data management with AI infused software. Currently, AVEVA is wholly owned by Schneider Electric. And coming to its revenue, it has growing recurring revenue by 10% plus. AVEVA has its expertise in cloud and hybrid cloud applications. AVEVA support customers across the entire business cycle, right from design and build, and then to operate and then to minimize. And AVEVA software drives transformation for plenty of customers from various sectors like power, energy, food and beverages, infrastructure, chemical, marine, mining, and EPC. So, yeah, if you wish to know more about AVEVA, we would be more than happy to help you. We'll be leaving a contacts at the end of this presentation and you can contact us anytime. So, yeah, getting into the topic, what's in it for you? So I'll be starting with the introduction to design thinking and then a brief history of design thinking. And then we'll be discussing about the design thinking processes. It has 5 stages, which are empathize, define, idea, prototype, and testing. And then we'll be talking about benefits of design thinking. We'll be sharing you a few examples and then we'll be talking about the key takeaways. So what is design thinking? Can you go to the next slide, Swarna? Yeah. So, design thinking, in short, is a mindset to innovatively create solutions and trying to solve problems. So, a good design thinker will come up with creative ways or creative processes on how to approach a problem. So, let me ask you a question. What is design? Then I'll get an answer like design is something on how a product looks. So we can say that design is a journey and destination, whereas design thinking is a core way of starting the journey and arriving at the right destination at the right time. So you can go through the definition from the slide. And design thinking is a philosophy and set of tools to help you solve problems creatively. It's about empathizing and figuring out who you are designing for, what their needs are, and then helping you to solve the problem, helping you to innovate based on those needs. And whereas many other problem solving processes before design thinking were always like, well, we have this technology, let's use this to solve this problem. But design thinking makes you think about the customer in human perspective. I can say that it is an iterative method which helps resolve user issues. And about this statement, you'll be well understanding this once we get deeper into the topic. And design thinking redefines problems in alternative strategies and solutions. And one important point is that design thinking is extremely helpful in solving problems that are ill defined and are unknown. So, on the whole, design thinking is an approach for creative problem solving. Design thinking is something the outside the box thinking, which you need to remember. Next slide. And guys, don't you think we need to appreciate roots and origins of a concept to truly understand that particular concept? So let's take a look on how design thinking emerged from an exploration of theory and practice to become one of the most effective ways to address the human, technological, and strategic innovation needs of our time. So here is the story decade by decade. In 1960s, attempts were made to make design scientific. In mid 1960s, Horst Rittel coined the word wicked problems. Wicked problems is nothing but it is used to describe problems which are multidimensional and extremely complex. So here, Rittel focused on how design methodologies could be used to tackle wicked problems. And wicked problems are the very heart of design thinking because it is precisely these complex and multidimensional problems that require a collaborative methodology to gain a deep understanding of humans' needs, motivations, and behavior. So moving on to the next decade, which is in 1970s, principles of design thinking started to emerge. A scientist, Herbert Simon, have spoken about prototyping and testing. What they believed in 1970s was to understand any system, it had to be constructed and its behavior has to be observed. Makes sense, right? So moving on to the next decade, in 1980s, solution focused problem solving was observed. Professor Brian Lawson has conducted a series of interesting tests, and the main goal of the test was to compare the methods used by scientists and architects when they attempted to solve the same ambiguous problem. So Lawson conducted the tests on postgraduate architectural students, who we call as designers. Excuse me. Sorry. So Lawson conducted the tests on postgraduate architectural students, that is the designers, and postgraduate science students, the scientists. The problem which he set for each group of students was to arrange colored blocks according to a set of rules, some of which were unknown to the students. If you look at the slide, there is a table named scientists and designers. All the results were documented in a table. So if you see the results, the scientists, what they did was they systematically explored every possible combination of blocks, whereas the designers quickly created multiple arrangements of colored blocks. And the scientists formulated a hypothesis about the fundamental rule they should follow to produce the optimal arrangement of blocks, whereas the designers tested their arrangement of blocks to see if it fits the rules. So Lawson, after looking at the results, concluded that the scientists were problem focused, problem solvers, whereas the designers were solution focused. So the designers chose to generate a large number of solutions and eliminate which did not work. And this is focused mindset, a core concept of designry way of problem solving. So rather than prolonged analysis of a problem, getting a quick satisfactory solution is what is important. And then in 1990s, it is widely accepted that IDEO is one of the companies that brought design thinking into the mainstream. They developed their own customer friendly terminology, steps, and toolkits over the years and made the process more accessible to those not schooled in design methodology. Coming to present day, many prestigious universities, business schools, and forward thinking companies have adopted the design thinking methodology to varying degrees and have sometimes even reinterpreted it to suit their specific context or brand values. So, next slide. Yeah. So why design thinking? With the help of design thinking, what can happen? So here I'll just give you an example of an American multinational company which supplies food and beverages. So the company chose design thinking to solve its problems, and after that it has experienced few changes. So if you see, the company communicated with consumers and solved problems by collaborating with teams and using innovative thinking. And the company empathized with users to design successful processes, products, and services. This is what design thinking is. Likewise, the company followed design thinking and then see what was the result. The company saw profit with effective business strategies and innovations. So finally, it is good user experience which helped this company to stay on top of the market. Next slide. So yeah, here comes an important question. Why design thinking is important? And to answer this question, there are 6 answers. Design thinking solves problems with human-centric techniques. It is an iterative process. It understands user challenges and redefines problems. It promotes a solution-based approach. It develops empathy with target user, which is really very important. And it promotes adopting a hands-on approach to prototyping and testing. Next slide. Now I'd like to discuss about the 4. Okay. Okay. So on the screen, you see that there are 5 processes of design thinking, which is the first, in which the first type is empathize. Here in this stage, you understand the user's needs and problems. And then you get into define stage wherein you analyze your observations to define the problem. And then comes the ideate phase, wherein you think of solutions to each aspect of the problem. And then comes the prototype, where you develop the actual solution here, or you build a prototype for each aspect of the problem. And the last is the testing, where you test the product using the best solutions identified. So, one point which I want to make here is the entire process is not a linear process. It is a non-linear process. It is not that you start with emphasize, then you define the problem, then you ideate it, then you build a prototype and you test it, and that is not the end. After test, you can always come back to empathize phase, then go to define, go to ideate, prototype, and test. Or maybe after test, you can come back to ideate and follow the next step. So it is a non-linear and an iterative process. Next slide. Yeah. Now I want to talk about the four important pillars of design thinking, which is understand by asking users' need, explore by finding patterns, prototype by providing specifications, and evaluate by always iterating. Yeah, there is a the famous Steve Jobs once said, design is not just what it looks like, it is how it works. So let me explain this with an example. Here, the example which I considered is a simple remote controller. Earlier, people used to use a universal remote. It had major disadvantage, and the disadvantage was that it has a number of buttons which is difficult to understand. And then came the smart remote, which has only major keys, which is easy to operate. Also, smart remote can be operated from mobile phones as well. Isn't it simple and creative? This evolution was done from design thinking. Yeah, next slide. So we have come to the first phase of design thinking, which is a very important phase, which is empathize. Designers are completely unaware of what users feel or how they think. Not even an expert can say what exactly is going on in their minds, right? So, how do you define empathy? Empathy is defined as the action of understanding and being aware of and being sensitive to and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experience of another without all these fully communicated in an objectively explicit manner. So, to empathize, you observe, engage, and immerse. So, empathy is considered as the cornerstone of any successful design project. And the key tools for gaining empathy in design thinking are through interviews and observations. So, empathy describes the ability to put yourself in another person's shoes. Designers needs to build empathy for their users in order to take the right course of action. It's important to understand how the user feels when interacting with a certain product or interface. And in building empathy, designers can create products which truly please the user and make their lives easier. And you know what happens without empathy? The design process lacks that all important user centricity, which often marks the distinction between product success and failure. So, I have spoken much about empathy. So, what exactly we do in this empathy, you think? So, empathy uses a technique of empathy mapping. As you all can see on the screen, these are the examples for empathy mapping. So, with the help of empathy mapping, you can build a rich insight which helps in figuring out genuine problems or issues which client may have. And visualizing a user's behavior in an empathy map help designers align on a deep understanding of end users. In short, an empathy map is a system to outline and imagine what a designer thinks of a specific user. I can say that empathy maps are used to gain a 360 degrees perspective on what user says, thinks, feels, and does. Empathy maps offer a glance into who a user is as a whole and what they feel is different from what they say, think, or do. So let us take a look at the format of empathy mapping. If you look at the first picture on the screen, basically we put the user at the center and the picture is divided into four quadrants. The first quadrant, quadrant, focuses on what client says or thinks. The second quadrant, which is the think quadrant emphasizes on what client thinks about their experience, or what the client basically thinks about the product experience. Now coming to the third quadrant, it focuses on how client interacts with the website or product, or what actions that client takes. And the fourth quadrant, which is the feel quadrant, emphasizes the consumer's mental status. Basically, it focuses on what consumer feels. So here is an example for empathy map. So if you see the second picture on the screen, where we have separately mapped out the notes. So what we need to do is we need to sketch a user at the center and write his name along with his description. Now let's take a look at the quadrants, at all the quadrants. In the say quadrant, you can notice statements like I was expecting something different, I want something reliable, and what do you think? Likewise, each quadrant has different examples, and these examples are different from every quadrant. So you need to sit with the customer and you need to write down all the notes in each of the quadrant on what the customer says, what the customer thinks, what the customer does, and what the customer feels. And once you finalize the notes, it's time to work on the themes. Next slide. So now that we have four quadrants and we know what users feel and what they do, how can we move forward with data and what will be our next step? Now comes the concept of theming, where once we have quadrant data, remember to divide them into themes. So once you have all the notes, you need to divide all those notes into themes. For example, if you take a look at the screen, the first picture, we have notes for each quadrant, right? If you see the first picture, say quadrant, it says that I was expecting something different and I want something reliable. So each note focuses on the same topic, but in a different way. So you can group them into a single theme. You just need to circle them and put them in a single theme. And likewise, you can follow the same practice for all the quadrants. So themes help you to guide on key areas that need attention. So through this, you can look at major user problems and notice how they might map to your journey. Next slide. So considering four quadrants, you can round up the notes that are quite similar, right? So if you see here, you have rounded up all the notes which are similar and you have named names for them, like different ideas. The customer needs different ideas. He's a little bit concerned about the timing, the timetable, social media platforms, etc. So one important point is here the themes with the majority of similar questions should be your target to focus on. So you need not consider all the themes. You need to consider themes with the majority of similar questions, right? And in short, once you complete interviewing your clients and create themes, you will know what questions to focus on and what not to. Next slide. So for any product or application, there might be a single user or multi-users. So I'd like to discuss how empathy mapping can be done in a single user case and in a multi-user case. So empathy maps can be implemented upon either one user or multiple users. In one user case, the designers will be focusing on a user interview. Since there will be only one user, you can just draw an empathy map, talk to the user, write down all the notes, do theming, and then finally come out on what exactly the user needs. Now coming to multi-user empathy, designers will be focusing on a user segment rather than a single user. So they combine numerous empathy maps which will meet similar behaviors. So likewise, we can work on the empathy maps. Now coming to the next slide. Yeah. The next important phase in design thinking is the define phase. The second step, as it is written on the slide, as a second step in design thinking process, the define stage is dedicated to defining the problem. What user problem will you be trying to solve? In other words, what is your design challenge? So the design stage ensures you fully understand the goal of your design project. A meaningful, actionable problem statement will steer you in the right direction. So basically, you need to write a meaningful problem statement that can be extremely challenging sometimes, right? First of all, what a problem statement is. A problem statement is nothing but it identifies the gap between the current state and the desired state of a process or a product. So how exactly you find a meaningful problem statement? There are few techniques which you can follow to come to the problem statement, few of which are the 4 W's. So with all the findings which you get from empathize phase, ask yourself the 4 W's, which are: who is experiencing the problem, like who is the target user, what is the problem, like based on the observations you made during the empathize phase, what are the problems and pain points that frequently come up. And next, the third W is: where does the problem present itself? In what space, like in physical or digital? It's like the situation or constant or context is the user. You need to know in which situation or context is the user when they face this problem. And the fourth W is: why does it matter? Why is it important that this problem be solved? In identifying the most prevalent issues, you will be one step closer to formulating a meaningful problem statement. And the next technique which you can follow, is the 5 whys technique. So this is another question based strategy. The 5 whys technique can help you dive deeper into the problem and drill down to the root cause. And once you know the root cause, you know what to fix, right? So you'll be having a problem statement in your hand and you can go to the ideate phase. So I'll give you an example to explain this 5 whys. So let's take an example of young working professional who wants to eat healthy but finds it difficult to do so. So here is the question. So there's a young professional who wants to eat healthy but finds it difficult to do so. So here is how we can use 5 whys technique and drill down to the root cause. So in this 5 whys technique, first we need to drill down to the root cause, and then once we find out a root cause, we will be getting a problem statement. So yeah, coming to the 5 whys for this particular example. Why is she not eating healthy is the first question which you need to ask yourself. And the answer will be: she orders takeaway every day. The second why. Why does she order takeaway every day? Because her fridge and cupboards are empty. So the third question comes: why is her fridge and cupboards empty? The answer to this question is: she hasn't been done grocery shopping in over a week. So the fourth question: why hasn't she done grocery shopping over a week? The answer for this question is: she doesn't have time to go to the sugar supermarket. So the fifth why doesn't she has time to go to the supermarket? The answer is: she works long hours and is exhausted. So once we are done with the 5 whys, the root cause here is, don't you think the root cause here is lack of time? So the solution might focus on efficiency and convenience. Your final problem statement might look something like this. Young working professionals need a quick, convenient solution to eating healthy. So by the end of define phase, you'll be ready with a meaningful, actionable problem statement and you'll be ready to move on to the ideation phase. Next slide. Yeah. So in this ideation phase, you will ask the right questions. You need to ask the right questions and you need to innovate on it. You need to step beyond the obvious solutions. So once you have a problem statement, there will be few obvious solutions, but you shouldn't be considering them. You need to increase the innovation potential of your solution. You always has to keep one word in your mind in this phase, which is innovation. So you need to increase that innovation potential of your solution. Basically, you need to get the obvious solutions out of your heads and drive your team beyond them. So you need to bring together perspectives and strengths of team members. You need to uncover unexpected areas of innovation. You need to create volume and variety in your innovation options. So I've taken these lines from a process guide of a D school, which says: ideation is the mode of the design process in which you concentrate on idea generation. Mentally, it represents a process of giving wide in terms of concepts and outcomes. Ideation provides both the fuel and also the source material for building prototypes and getting innovative solutions into hands of your users. So on the whole, in Ideate, you will come up with an innovative idea for the problem statement you have, and post which you can start on building your solution or building the prototype. So next comes the prototype phase. I will hand over this to Swarna.
Thank you, Suma, for taking us through different phases of design thinking. Now let's take you through prototype phase. So, what is a prototype? A prototype is a scaled down version of the product built to test ideas and changes. You got some ideas and you got some uh, problem statement, and understood from users, you empathized with users, you have some idea, you have some problem statements. So how do you take it back to users with a uh, solution? It's easier to explain them with a prototype. So prototyping is a process of transferring ideas and experiment from your head to the physical world. It helps to understand the user through the implementation of your experimental ideas and design. It is the experimental stage in which the design team look to implement the test designs on the users before it reaches before it reaching the final testing stage. It we have to address all the issues that were brought up in the prior stages. Suma explained us about different examples in different stages: empathize, uh, define, and ideate. So we'll have to come up with a solution to all these stages where we discussed, and we have some conception and ideas in our mind. We'll have to come up with a mock version of the concept to put it in front of the users so that we can receive a quick feedback that would help us validate those concepts. And we'll have to circle back and look at other prototypes until we satisfy what the users want. Brainstorming will help extensively here so that we can come up with multiple prototype options. A prototype can be of any kind, from a small, simple a wall of post-it notes, a role-playing session, a space, or an object, an interface, or even a storyboard. So it's something that we produce early, very inexpensive, and a scaled down version of the product in order to reveal any problems we come up in the current design phase. And prototypes can be of any um, kind and of single or multiple, just different prototype for different functionality depending upon the user needs. You can mock up every feature and interactions in your prototype as in your full as in to show your fully developed product, and check if your ideas work and verify the overall user experience strategy. Prototypes are most successful when they can be experienced and interacted by people. That is with that is the design team, the user, the other stakeholders, whoever is involved. What you can learn from those interactions can help you develop greater empathy and develop a effective solution. So why do we need a prototype? Prototyping allows you to communicate ideas to users and stakeholders by understanding which aspects of it are hard or impossible to implement. Making a prototype helps reveal previously unknown technical and financial constraints. Getting a first-hand insights from users, uh, we can unify all their ideas and allow stakeholders to see the product from a new perspective. It enables them to see it materialize and provide a focused feedback on desired details, both stated and unstated. For example, if we take a website, prototyping helps to test the usability of the site by looking into the overall navigation. It helps us understand the accessibility of the site, check on the placements of visual accents. The data obtained from the prototype allows designers to make quick changes to the idea what they earlier discussed and came up with. Therefore, this prototype work in stimulating final product and helps in testing the correctness of the design and identifying the design errors before it reaches the final stage. Gap Gathering insights to help evaluate and prioritize your ideas. The opinions from our potential users help us to improve on the existing idea till the conception of the ideal product. Creating several prototypes before the launch of the large scale product helps us save extra cost on reprogramming the production line. It Prototypes help in presenting the ideas and concepts to user in a more concrete way through a collection of opinions, recommendations, and testimonials. And thus, it can it can show us the technically feasible way of doing it. Prototype helps, it's a miniature version, and it helps in the reduction of uh, cost and some reduction of risks in future, as it directly affects the most crucial component of the project, thus the resource, the time, and the budget. It helps in figuring out the hidden shortcomings and functional gaps. So in a way, we are iterating at a very lower cost. Now, I'll take you through the different aspects of prototype. Whenever we talk about prototype, we want to understand what are the different kinds of prototype, or how should a prototype be? Is it a small handwritten prototype, or do you want it to be fully functional, or do you want some interactive something that is interactive, like a user screen, touch screen, where we can experience and see, or it's just a view only um, uh, type. So when we say prototype, we want to understand what kind of prototype we want. It can vary from low fidelity to high fidelity, depending upon how we want to project our thoughts to the user. Let me take you through a small login screen example, that how it would look from a low fidelity to high fidelity. So this is a login screen, and if you have a problem statement with all different phases, we have come up with a proper problem statement to design a login screen. So in that case, how can we first show with a very low um, feel, to say how we want a login screen to look like? Just draw in a paper, show you want this kind of image and some login button, and create account kind button. And then later, you start discussing with the users about the dimensions of the screen, or some look and feel, where you want the image, where you want the buttons. So it's the next level of example that is showing the second picture, where we have little defined way to put the buttons and show the where we want the picture, and that is implemented on the app. That's a third picture. So this app will have a login feature, sign up feature, so user can interact and see how the feature works, and there's some picture, they know there is going to be something else there. So it's a midway. Now again, if you want to improve that prototype, you want a better version of it, so you have something that is little better, look and feel of it is good. You have username, password, and login button, and you have a single sign-on feature implemented, through which users can easily log in using their existing accounts. So this gives them the idea of how their page is going to look. And the final one is almost close to um, the final product. So this This way we can have any kind of prototype, or we can have multiple levels and show and go back to users and discuss with them and have a idea. So this helps us to get feedbacks from user and also to show our idea to them. uh, so let me go to the next phase, the last phase of design thinking, that is testing. So what is testing? It's a phase where the solution of the product is tested on a full scale. But what is a product? It can be a prototype, it can be a final product, depending on which phase or which level are we in a product, or in a uh, solution that we are designing for. It helps us to evaluate whether a solution might or might not work. The prototype that's considered best after considering the feedback from customers and end user is implemented. The testing stage can provide both positive and negative results depending on the success or failure of the prototype that we created in the previous stage. Testing might also lead to repeating the design thinking process, like how Suma mentioned. It is an iterative way where you can iterate between just prototype and testing, or you can iterate between the entire phases or stages of design thinking process. It provides valuable insights. The testing stage provides us valuable insights, and allow the designer to rework the problem definition, problem statement at hand, and create a new solution that can better empathize with the end user. And testing is a repetitive process whereby the prototype will have to be tested repetitively to iterate the design, affirming the saying, test early, test often. This testing phase has an impact on all the previous stages of design thinking process. When a designer designs a product, there is a lot of assumptions and biases that go into the design and development of the product. Every designer thinks that they create the best version of the problem in their hand. However, the testing phase gives them the reality check and allows them to empathize with the end user. Conducting repeated testing sessions will provide the designer with a real-time valuable feedback through the observations of real users and not through assumptions. The generated user feedback deepens the understanding of end users. Therefore, testing helps to bring all the preceding stages together and provide a comprehensive solution that may require adjustments or is ready for a large-scale execution. So, how is testing conducted? All of us know there is a series of steps where we have exhaustive test cases. We perform the testing activities and draw inferences and feedbacks, user feedbacks, and report these results. But I would like to talk about an ideal scenario. A user is likely to interact with the actual product to get ideal results, but it's not always possible to do so. Thus, designer can opt to get users to perform a task wherein they are made to interact with the prototype. The idea behind conducting the testing stage on prototype is to see how end users might interact with the product in real time. In testing, instead of assuming that the prototypes are correct, the user-centric design supports in creating services and enhancements that the end users require. The usability studies from the testing stage validate the work and ideas completed by designers in the previous stages of design thinking process. The testing can also expose design flaws, leading the team to return back to the empathize phase with useful knowledge to start over again. Designers have a major impact on how design take, take shape, the consequences of their usage, and how users experience them. It's an iterative process. So there isn't a fixed sequential pattern on how different phases we have to go through how different phases, how we want to go. We can go the way we want to go. If we have a prototype ready and we have test results ready, we can go back to empathize base, understand the user's feedback, come back directly to prototype, or even have an idea generated, or if the problem is not clear, define a problem statement. We can go through different iterations, different path, not the sequential, or it's not a sequential, or it's not any straight line path. You have to go through this path. The end goal of a designer is to gain a deeper and better understanding of the user's requirement and use this knowledge to create an optimal solution that they can provide, or that they can address the user's issue. If the end user feels satisfied with the prototype, then the design thinking process concludes here. However, if there is any usability issues or other feedbacks that require looking into, then the complete process is conducted again and again. Once the end product is able to satisfy the desirability, viability, and feasibility, it is considered to be ideal to end the design thinking process. So there is a quote by Tim Brown, which says design thinking is not a sequence but as a system of overlapping spaces. Let me explain you through this. This is just a small idea that we have to understand. The design thinking process is best thought as a system of overlapping spaces rather than a sequence of orderly steps. So there are three spaces here to keep in mind. One is inspiration, ideation, and implementation. So what is inspiration? It's a first step towards creation of the product. Observing how things and people work in the real world is very helpful for drawing the inspiration. Next, ideation. It's important to let ideas flow through brainstorming sessions or some brain writing sessions or some kind of group activity. And then organizations often restrict the ideas on certain ideating on certain projects, which is easier for them to do it in a short term, but in a long run, divergent thinking and more ideas are what lead to disruptive solutions and are beneficial. It is also advisable to have multidisciplinary teams when collaborating. The last space is the implementation space, where we have to do the prototyping and testing, which is a key to creation of final product or service. Um, and we have to test within a small and well chosen sample set of users who can help create a revolutionary product. So let me take you through some examples, some interesting examples, which will make you think how design thinking has impacted in these products. So the first success story is Heinz Ketchup. So who doesn't like ketchup? We all like to have every bit of ketchup, even we want the last drop of ketchup. We don't like to miss it out. So this bottle most of us have in home. When we want to have the last bit of ketchup, it gets stuck at the bottom, and we keep tapping at the top to get. I mean, tapping at the bottom upside down to get the last bit of ketchup, but still there is some ketchup left missing in the end, which we can't have. Isn't that a bad design? So what should we do here? This is the problem. And through all these phases, like how Suma explained us, and how we have different phases, through all these levels, they have come up with a solution, an interesting solution, that is upside down bottle. Now the bottle is always upside down. You get every bit of ketchup. Let me go to the next story. That is G Healthcare, um, who has come up with the solution for a MRI room. So if you go to an MRI room, if you want to do a scan, you will have to sit there and not move. You have to sleep and not move. But when they want to do a scan for kids, they are not they can't be at one place. They roam around, they move around, and sometimes they get scared, they cry. So they wanted to come up with a solution for this is a problem for us. So the team, the G healthcare designers team, they went and then they immersed themselves in the experience of kids, understood their mindset, and they learned that for a kid, MRI room might be must be stressful and frightening experience. So they had to have something, you know, which is nice and good, makes them feel good. So they came up with this solution that is kids friendly MRI room. Now I'll take you to another story, which is more like a case study where there is a lot of work done, and they had this is about Airbnb. They were in the verge of bankruptcy in the year 2008, 2009, and from there they now are the top uh, go-to person. Whenever we travel around the world, we first look at Airbnb app to book a room. So what is this? Why were there? Why they were in the verge of bankruptcy? So when this concept had come in the beginning, they asked the host to use the app and rent out their rooms or their house for visitors. And these hosts, they used to take up pictures with their smartphone and put it on the app, and they waited for the visitors. But the visitors were not interested with the photos, and they didn't book any rooms because they couldn't see what they were paying for. And the hosts were also uncertain with even the little few visitors who were booking. They were not sure what kind of visitors, who are they and all. So that's when the Airbnb team, the designers, they had to come up. This is a problem for them. They are going on a loss. They want to grow as a business, so they had to put themselves in the shoe of the customer. Both host and visitors go to the place, go to the location, understand the people's mindset, be with the users who are going to use this app, be with them, understand what is needed. So the solution that they had come up was to rent a camera. They going to the place, take a good nice photos and upload it on the app, make the app more user friendly, where the host can talk to the visitors about few details to understand about them. In that way, within few weeks they had lot more bookings than they thought, and the business hence then was just growing, and now it's one of the revolutionizing tourism app that we go to for booking rooms. Isn't this wonderful? It has grown, made the business grow. So that is the impact that design thinking can put on everything, starting from product to even a business or financial thing. So let's talk about the benefits to give you more insights on this. Design thinking is fundamentally about making decisions through the lens of what will be useful and engaging to people. It's more of to think about people's need and create better user experience. The design thinking process arises from and revolves around the user end, whether it's a new product, technology, or service. Defining who will use it and how they will use it is the key to understand how to develop it. Second point, deepen and widen customer relationships. Design thinking process seeks feedback from the entire team. That it engages with people who can lend different perspectives and offer creative new ideas to solving problems. This helps to strengthen the bond between co-workers, users, customers, and allows for a better understanding of each other. Third, reduction of cost and risk of a failed project. As a matter of fact, looking specifically at the prototyping stage, we don't have to use most expensive materials to create a prototype. Testing ideas with prototype or sketches or getting feedbacks early in the process can lead to breakthroughs and prevent a bad investment of time, labor, money, and materials. improve customer retention. Paired with high technical expertise, the principles of design thinking enable teams to build a successful product. When you adopt design thinking, it empowers team to create a product which ensures user retention and fruitful results. Next is the competitive advantage. Successful products are always appreciated and well adopted by users, giving it an advantage over competing products in the market. Next is the designing new business models. How? So the principles of design thinking offer the ability to create products that add value to users. This not only permits you to have happy customers, but also also experience improved revenue, increased sales, and business models. Through design thinking, you can also iterate on your existing product and improve them to meet your customers' need. Like the one I mentioned, hence Heinz Ketchup. We improved it to meet the customer's need. Then increased value to society. Obviously, design thinking process has the ability to generate breaking solutions in less disruptive yet creative way. It is more than just a process; it's an innovation, like Suma mentioned in ideate phase. So let me go take you through the key takeaways. First, it's a solution based, user centric approach. Design thinking process is a user centric approach that allows you to build innovative solutions. The principles of design thinking compel you to understand your customer's behavior deeply. That includes knowing their daily habits, fears, pain points, and motivations, allowing you to have empathy for those who will use your product. As a result, you can create a innovative products that actually cater to the customer's demand. Next, focus on the roots, not on the fruits. You don't know, you don't build a successful product or application overnight. You must focus on the roots, developing healthy relationship with customers and users, listening, taking time alone to reflect on their visions, direction and strategy plan, explained execution, and determination, perseverance, and a lot more. Then take a time you enjoy the success of labor. It takes its own time. You must be clear on the few basics and stick to them. Next is to get better at noticing things. Everyone you meet has a story that will give you an insight into their character. When conducting interviews with users, look for that story. Ask questions that will elicit deeper responses. Finding that story will increase your empathy for the user and reveal their needs. Next is focus on the user's problem first. We measure a product's success by how well it fulfills the human needs. A good problem statement is human centric and user focused. Based on the insights gathered in the empathize phase, the problem statement focuses on the user and their needs, not on the product specifications or business outcomes. Next is frame and reframe the problem. Design thinking revolve around design, testing, and iteration. When these three factors combine, they allow you to build a winning product. Because the design thinking approach helps you to create numerous prototypes in a minimum time period. And thus, you can keep getting feedbacks, keep reframing the problem, and keep working on the prototype until you have a final version. Next, no idea is a bad idea. In design thinking, it is important to practice multiple brainstorming techniques. Build on the ideas of others, even if they are unrealistic. A positive brainstorming session will encourage new ideas and create a better solution for your problem. I think there is some error here. So the next point is fail faster, learn sooner. Okay. More time doesn't mean always you are creating a better product. Rather than spending days and weeks planning your product, get your idea out there, get feedbacks, iterate quickly. The more you test your idea and integrate the feedbacks, the quicker you will arrive at a workable solution. So it's always better to fail quickly and fail often, so you know where you are and what you want to do. The last point is use feedback to focus and refine your idea. You are able to receive fast feedback from real users with this continuous experimenting until the solution matches the user's demand. Moreover, design thinking also helps you decide what features to add, exclude, modify in your current idea to make it more user centric. These are the key takeaways. So hope this brings us to the end of the session. Hope this was interesting. I would like to thank Aviva Conceit Nexus 23 for giving us this opportunity. Um, yeah, and these are our coordinates. Please contact us if you have any queries. Thank you. Thank you.